Hey there guys, it's Victor with Victor JKU. We're getting back into soft top season, so I am doing a little bit of cleanup on my soft top before I throw it back on Vector. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so we are working outside and we're also going to be later in the garage today. We are working on getting my soft top all cleaned up from last year's dirt and dust and everything else that I went through. So the outside's pretty easy to maintain and keep clean. You can keep it clean just by washing it on the Jeep, no big deal there. But over several wheeling trips last year, I was out in some dusty environments up at Walker Valley, over in the Natchez area at Funny Rocks and Moon Rocks, and I got a whole bunch of dust on the inside of the soft top. So I kind of wanted to go about and do a detail clean of this. So basically what I did was I just put out 4 of the sawhorses and I just threw the soft top on upside down, and so that's allowing me to pressure wash out everything. You can see I've already got like a decent amount of sediment and stuff that's coming out just by pressure washing it. So we're already getting a lot cleaner, but I'm going to go through and I'm going to actually hit it with some soap and a little power wheel on a drill motor, scrub it out real good, and then I'm going to come back and rinse that off, and then we're going to go ahead and flip it over, get the other side. And one area that I can never really get well while it's on the Jeep, because I don't want to get a lot of water inside the Jeep. Yes, I have the Armor Light system, but I don't really want to get water in the back area. And that's getting right inside this seam here where the window will attach in. So this is always a dusty area, it's difficult to get clean, and this is a good opportunity for me to hit that right now. So I'm going to kind of walk you through, guys, a little bit of what I'm doing. You can watch what I'm doing here, and the big thing that I'm going to show you is what I'm doing to clean up the soft windows, because I do have a lot of scuffs on them, and I did this when I first bought my soft top. And I think a lot of people out there are interested, you know, what can you do to refurbish those windows and how can you get them back to looking good again? And I'm gonna go and walk you through today what I do to get those guys looking at least newer, if not looking pretty darn good. So stay tuned, we'll get into that shortly. All right, so basically what I'm doing is I just poured a little bit of soap into the top, and I have my drill motor, and I just have one of these soft bristle brushes that I picked up off of Amazon. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of work it around, scrub a little bit, and that'll be good for the inside. Alright, then there's a few areas that you want to know to be careful around. Is any areas that there's seals, and also this front edge. I just want to be cautious on some of those sharper edges that you're not getting too much pressure or anything. But with that, basically that's one panel. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that on the other 2, and we'll be done with the underside. Alrighty guys, so we got the first part wrapped up. We have the underside all washed. I used a little bit of soapy water with that scrub brush on my drill motor. Got everything pretty clean. Honestly, it looks a lot better than it did before, and pretty happy with how it's looking. So now for the fun part, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna flip this without dropping it in the gravel. Flipping it this way wasn't too terrible, but it was a little bit of a challenge. But now I'm gonna get wet while I do this, so enjoy the show. Well, I guess that wasn't quite as bad as I expected. Of course, that stupid saw falling down didn't help. Alright guys, so next up what we're going to do is we're going to go and hit the top. We're going to basically do the same thing. We're just going to go ahead and rinse off as much as we can with the pressure washer. Then we're going to come back with a little bit of soapy water and with my drill motor with the scrub brush, go over everything. And we'll also be able to focus a little bit more on the inside of these seams here where the zipper and the Velcro are. Try to get these areas a little bit more clean. And really the big primary one is right back here in the back. This is probably the biggest flap in the area that collects the most dust that I can never really get to. So we're gonna go ahead and get going on that. Alright guys, so next up is I'm going to be washing the windows. So I have a lot of grinding dust that was all over my soft top and also my windows. You can see this guy's a bit hazed over. That's from all the projects I've been doing over the winter with the Evo Builder Corners, doing the tube flares, as well as the front and rear bumper modifications. So I don't want to be wiping this off because I could potentially scratch the window more. So I'm going to try to rinse it off, and then I'm going to go in and do a little bit of wash, and then we'll get into the window treatment after that. Alright guys, so we just finished up washing and drying everything. We have the windows hanging here in the sun, trying to let them dry out a little bit. I also have all the brackets for the door surrounds down here as well. I pressure washed those, letting those dry, and we still got the soft top over here drying up as well. So I gotta let it all dry a little bit because I can't do the rubbing compounds and everything else on the windows while they're wet. So I gotta wait for that to finish up drying. So I'm gonna let it sit out in the sun for a little while, and I'll catch back with you guys once everything's dry. We'll move back in the garage and I'll show you my process. Alright guys, so with the windows now cleaned and dry, now it's time to treat the soft windows. So I kind of have a little bit of a process here. So basically what I like to do is on all my windows, I like to use invisible glass in RainX. It gets a really clean finish with the invisible glass, and then the RainX just gives you a nice protective layer, which helps basically beat up the water kind of like a wax does for your paint. And so I honestly don't really run my windshield wipers that much unless it's a lot of road spray coming up from the vehicle in front of me. I will typically just let the wind carry the water off my windshield if I'm traveling fast enough. If I'm driving at a slower speed, then I'll have to still use my wipers. But for the most part, the RainX makes it so I don't have to, and it's really nice. So that's what I'm going to basically do to finish off once I'm done doing the treatment. So my first steps here are going to be using this 3M rubbing compound, and then I have some Power Plastic for Lights by Mothers, which I actually have done some headlight restorations on some plastic headlights where I was able to take all the oxidation and fading out of it. And so I had this left over, and what I did was a couple of years ago when I picked up the soft top, I actually did this on all of the windows, and it did a pretty good job for me. And you can see I have some new scratches, scuffs on these windows now. And so I'm going to go through and redo this process both on the inside and the outside. And I additionally have my drill motor with the attachment that has a little Velcro on it. What I'm going to do is I'm basically going to be using one of these application pads. I'll stick that on there and I'll be able to spin that, and that will get me everything on this nice and clean. Now the only other thing that you may want to do is you want to sort of mask off around the edges of the fabric where the window and the fabric meet, because if you do get this stuff into the fabric, it's kind of a pain to get out. So I'm also going to grab a little bit of Scotch tape and do that before I get to work. So what I'm first going to do, I'm just going to kind of rub the rubbing compound over everything a little bit. I may have put on a little bit more than I needed, but that's okay. Just going to rub it over everywhere a little bit so it doesn't spray or fling it anywhere too much. And I'm going to go ahead and start working with the motor. And with that, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and wipe off the residue that is left behind. Now we'll move on to the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and swap out this pad for my other pad. I'm going to keep the applicator pads unique to the product that I'm using. So we're done with the rubbing compound on this one. So next I'm going to run over to the Power for Plastic Lights polisher. Start off with giving it a little shake. We'll apply a little bit of this down. And again, we'll start off with rubbing it with the applicator pad over the windows so we don't have any spray, or minimize the spray at least. And then we'll go ahead and get to work on it. And again, we'll come back with our rag and we'll go ahead and wipe off that residue. So the window looks a lot better. It definitely still has scratches in it, but you know, I was just wanting to do a little bit of revitalization to the window. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go ahead and apply my invisible glass and RainX, since this is the outside. And then we'll just let the RainX dry for a minute here. It'll haze up a little bit, and then at that point we'll go ahead and wipe it off with our microfiber cloth again. So that pretty much wraps up basically the process of how I go about cleaning up the windows, getting them revitalized, taking some of the scratches out, and making the appearance and look of them a little bit cleaner than before. And this is just my process of doing it. Is there a better way to do it, or is there alternate ways that you can do this? I'm sure there are. I'm sure there's other products that are specifically made for treating the soft windows. I just use products that I have laying around from past jobs that I've done on my Jeep, and so this is just what I happen to use. But I gotta say that I'm pretty happy with the results. It's definitely not back to new, but they're good enough for me. And honestly, I know that I go through a lot of forest and treed areas where I have a lot of brush that's gonna be scoring up these windows. So I'm okay with the appearance that they are, and I accept that they will always have some scratches in them. But that's gonna wrap it up for today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed today's video on how I go about doing a detailed clean of my entire soft top. Also, how I go about treating the windows. Hope that you enjoyed today's content. If you did, definitely hit the thumbs up button. Give this video a like for me. Put any comments or questions you have down in the comment section below. And if you aren't already, please hit that subscribe button and subscribe to my channel. Sign up for notifications if you feel like it. And otherwise, guys, we are Victor JKU. We're taking on this build and the trails, both direction and magnitude. Alright guys, have a good one. Catch you next time.